So today we're talking about piracy on the high seas, but we have to talk about the uniforms for a second for Colonel Fraser and Colonel Montgomery and the Highland battalions in general, circa 1756 and 57. And you can see here, this is a facsimile of a January 1757 document showing what your standard, your average private soldier would receive from at his initial issue: his coat, his waistcoat, a plaid, a bonnet, a couple shirts, some neck stocks. We think those were probably black in color, keep them easy to clean, keep the dirt off of it, or keeping the dirt from being visible. A couple pairs of shoes and a couple pairs of hose. The shoes and hose were split up. They get half the allotment in June, and then they would get the other half of the allotment in December. Now, the piracy occurred in the middle of May. I'm just showing a location here off the east coast of Canada near Forillon National Park. And what happened was this English schooner got separated. It got in a fog and was separated from the rest of its convoy, and two French ships ended up hijacking it. So I'll give you a timeline of kind of what transpired here. In early March of 1760, the yearly clothing allotment for troops in North America would have been collected in Britain, collected and prepared, and then shipped on over. Approximately April 15th, the shipment for the men had arrived at Halifax, Nova Scotia, and approximately 1 May, the clothing was loaded aboard the schooner Amherst, and then Amherst was scheduled out of Halifax to transport it up to Quebec. And then the middle of May, where I just showed you off the coast of Forillon, it was intercepted by Le Machu en route in the Gulf of the St. Lawrence. It was actually two French ships. The other ship was Bienfaisant. And the very next day, the cargo was transferred to Bienfaisant and not Le Machu, because Le Machu already had a full cargo out of France. So that ship, or these two ships, were bringing cargo over for its French citizens. But Le Machu was already filled. They transfer everything to her counterpart. And then you can see the regiments that were affected by this. 4,700 soldiers from the 15th, the 35th Regiment, the 58th, also the 2nd and 3rd Battalions of the 60th Royal Americans, and of course, Colonel Fraser's regiment. Now, these two ships went on to participate on July 8th in the Battle of Restigouche. And ironically, the captain, after being outnumbered enormously by British forces, had these ships scuttled. So the clothing never made it to the men. It was lost during the sinking of these two ships. So there's some particulars on Le Machu: 120 feet in length at the keel, had nominal guns of up to 32, had a complement of about 400 men. We think some of those were French Navy, some of them may have been civilian, some of their counterparts may have been civilians as well. And some of the clothing that was taken, regimental shirts and jackets, coats. There could have been some foul weather coats in there. It's possible. We don't know specifically on that, but the great coats and the overcoats, the sentinel hats, certainly the Highlanders' Balmoral bonnets, the shoes, some leg hose, the stockings, breeches, the whole gamut, really. Again, affecting 4,700 men. Now, what's the ramifications of losing all this clothing? Well, the men were left in rags. Think about that. They only got clothing on an annual basis. So they're forced to wear the same clothes, worn out, probably ragged. There's health risks. There's emergency expenditures involved because the colonels had to pay for all this. So now the colonels have paid for it once. Now they need to get a whole new set of clothing ordered. Of course, that's going to take another 3-4 months to get prepared. Their discipline and their appearance. Any new recruits would have trouble getting new clothing issued. So there was a lot of cannibalization, a lot of repairs that had to go on. And then the logistical reality, there's longer supply lines, limited local supply, and it's a heavy burden really on the crown and everybody involved. So July 8th, talked about it briefly there, British forces under Commodore George Byron really just laid it to the French forces. And if you think about it, the Battle of Restigouche was really the French's, I guess you'd call it their last opportunity to save grace. Between the war that went on in 1759 and the battle at Montmorency and the battle at Sillery, this was really kind of it was like a Hail Mary, so to speak. But the two French ships were deliberately scuttled to prevent their recapture by the British forces. Now, not only was clothing on board, I spoke with Parks Canada about this because in 1969, they sent some divers down and they retrieved a lot of items. There was a lot of pottery on there. There was a couple firelocks that they were able to retrieve. A lot of good stuff. So for Colonel Fraser, he wanted to get his money back because I explained that briefly that the colonel had to put out the money for this, and then he would get some money back in the form of off reckonings. But I found this particular document, again, this is a facsimile, that he had petitioned the British Journal of the House of Commons in 1766 to be reimbursed for replacing the clothing of the 78th. He wanted to be reimbursed. Obviously, he didn't feel that he should have to put it out, make the same payment twice, is what I'm trying to say. Whether he was successful or not, we don't know. I haven't been able to locate a document, nor have I been able to locate the document that he had submitted to the House of Commons. Interestingly, when Parks Canada went down and did its excavation of the two sunken ships, I think they spent some 4,000 hours doing this. And this is an example. This is a shoe that they pulled off of Le Machu. Now, the interesting thing about this is I did some more digging, and I found a gentleman who's got a website, and he makes recreations of the period shoes, the period from the 1750s and 1760s. What we don't know is if civilians and military both wore the same shoe, meaning if this shoe came off of Le Machu, you kind of look at this area in here on the strap, and of course the 1, 2 kind of looks like 3 layers to the heel. Looks very, very similar to this. You got the same angle right here, and you got the 3 layers to the heel. So whether Le Machu was delivering shoes for its French forces or its civilian inhabitants, or both, what I'm getting at is the military shoe and the civilian shoe may have been the exact same thing. It may have just been one kind of style. We really don't know. But I found this and I thought it was kind of interesting, so I wanted to share that with you. So I hope you found this information valuable in your research. Clothing, there's a lot of moving pieces to when it comes to clothing. You had your contractors in Britain that were hired, and then with the Highland regiments, you also had contractors up in Scotland. They were preparing the plaids, they were preparing the shirts, while the jackets were being prepared down in London, and then you had suppliers getting other things, other accoutrements like knapsacks, and your firelocks, your weapons, and things like that. So logistically, there was a lot going on. There was a lot that had to be collected each year and put on ships and sent on over. So if you have any questions about clothing specifically, leave me a comment, shoot me a question. I'll do my best to answer it. I do have some stuff on clothing on my website already, but if there's something that I can assist you with, I'd be more than happy to. Thank you for stopping on by, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.